everybody. This is T. Falcon Napier. Welcome to the Practitioner Summit. Today, our subject is all about crafting a strong activity list. So one of the things that's come up in the coaching sessions and the other educational things we've been doing recently is that people want to start using their online change grid a lot more frequently, but they don't feel as confident in their abilities to craft the activities that would prove to be most useful to them as they do that. So I thought, well, you know what? This is a pretty basic skill. Let's do a deep dive into it and see how much you guys already know about crafting that perfect activity list and how you go about even sourcing the kinds of activities that you might want to look at. So this all goes back to a basic thing you've heard me say over and over again, and that's the most important part of a successful change grid is the activity list. So, and by the way, the most challenging part of the change work system is crafting that activity list. As I've said many times before, reading a change grid, providing some insights of interpretation, getting your thought wheels turning, that's pretty straightforward stuff. But if you really want to get maximum positive benefit from using a change grid, it starts with that activity list being very well thought through, very well crafted, so that you're getting to what you really wanted to be looking at as we work our way through that. So anyone thoughts, comments about where this whole activity list piece fits in and why I'm saying it's the most important part of the whole puzzle? Yeah. All right. All right. So let me go ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I mean, it's the core of what you're working with. So um,
Yeah.
it's the substance or the topics around which you create a change grid.
Absolutely. And I think, we can even generalize it to just the interactions we have with people in whatever area of life we're looking at. I mean, how often does a conversation with another human boil down to what do you want me to do, or what do I need you to do, or what's happening, or whatever. So it's like our interactions do tend to have a transactional element to them more often than not, and those transactional elements are activities. And so everything we're going to be talking about when it comes to crafting a great activity list for using with a change grid, it also applies just in general conversations, interactions with other people. So hopefully we can have some fun with that. So obviously, if you're going to craft an activity list, you have to begin somewhere. And the place that I think you begin is what subject you have in mind. It's great. And we'll talk about this as we work our way through this. A lot of people do use the change grid as their activity list. There's no reason why every one of you on this call can't go to the Changeworks system, log in, select your personal change grid, and simply use it as your to-do list. Even if you never fill out the ratings to create the grid itself, just having that list in front of you could prove to be very handy. If you just start off by populating it with only the activities on your to-do list and forget the assessment part, it's a very eye-opening experience to notice which activities you delete because you finished them and which activities linger day after day. They stay on the list, but they never get done. At that point, I would say it could be very useful for you to now fill out the assessment on those lingering activities. Why aren't they getting done? And it may very well be because when you do the assessments, it ends up plotting you in an unfavorable place for following through and getting stuff done on the change grid. So yeah, you can certainly use it for that and only that reason. But bottom line is, when you're going to do a change grid, there's going to be some sort of subject around which you're doing this exploration. So whether it's about career or a family issue or a decision you're trying to make, or a situation you find yourself in personally, the crafting of an activity list generally begins with some situation, some subject, some whatever. And as I go through this, if you guys want greater clarification on any of it, you just say so. But I think most of this should be a review at this point in time. So you're starting off with with some subject. Now, how do you go about sourcing these activities? Where do these activities actually come from? Well, For most of us with some experience using the change grid, most of the time, most of the activities are just going to be rattled off the top of our mind. We've been thinking about it. We put it down on a piece of paper, or we put it down on the change work system, as the case may be. So a lot of it, first and foremost, just start off with what you already have in mind. Don't worry about the order. Don't worry about anything like that at all. And I do think you guys know, but I'll cover this when we get to best practices, is that you should always build your activity lists in Word. Don't build them if it's going to be something you really want to dive into. Don't hesitate to use Word before you begin populating the activity list. It simply is a matter of the efficiency of the Word software. It allows you to create things very quickly. It will fix your spelling as you go along, and you can then easily cut and paste from your Word document into the activity list you're actually building on the change grid. So yeah, so for definitely for some applications, that's as big of a best practice I can give you. But even casually using it, why can't you just be doing kind of a stream of consciousness thing when you're journaling for yourself or whatever? Just highlight and say, this is an activity I might want to look at. So collect them, and a great place to collect them is certainly inside of Word. Nevertheless, we start off with top of mind. What are we already thinking about? What's our oracle saying to us, etc. Now, if you want to be a little more formal with it, you can walk the path of self-discovery. And certainly we've talked about that extensively in the training that you guys have gone through. But we'll touch it again by the end of this conversation. So walk the path of self-discovery. As you walk each step of the path, a certain set of activities comes up. And so when we do the walk, you'll see what might come from that. The third thing you can certainly do is chat with GPT. It used to be go online and Google or whatever, but I can tell you, if you're looking for mission critical activities, or how do you best go about accomplishing X, Y, Z, or what should I think about when it comes to dealing with problem, ABC, I promise you, using Chat GPT or one of the other strong AI platforms is a great way for you to get the list that you're looking for. You can also extract activities by working with a peer. So someone else that you like to do brainstorming things with, or maybe you both are ChangeWorks practitioners and you want to kind of help one another. Well, that's a great person to work with, to just say, here's my situation. Here's the area I'm looking at. These are the activities that I've come up with. What do you think? What am I missing? What would you add, change, whatever the case may be. So you could work with a peer, and certainly you could work with a ChangeWorks professional. A lot of people who are working with a ChangeWorks coach or consultant or whatever are also using the change grid themselves, and we certainly encourage that. So show it to your professional, let them help you flesh it all out. So these are some of the best sourcing activities for practitioners. Thoughts about any of these? Comments, questions? Yeah. All right.
I was
Ambulance.
going to ask a question. I was waiting for the ambulance to pass by
Well, look,
you.
as long as it's
But
not coming for you, we're good.
so when you're doing this sourcing, you're not concerned necessarily with like the verb form and that kind of thing.
Nope.
You're just literally just
I
the
want a raw
ideas.
list. I want to start with a raw list.
Got it.
Really refining an activity is an investment of your time and your
Right.
energy, and so before you bother doing that, just create a massive list of whatever ones you can. It's true, only a handful of them will rise to the top of your list and be the ones you want to start off with, at least doing a dive into. But I would rather collect the activities and only use a subset of them than not have the benefit of what do I say, inspired thinking, creative thinking, hitting something from different angles, crafting a activity list through multiple sources is going to give you a much more robust list that you can deal with. Yeah. And again, these five are just for people that are independent practitioners. A practitioner is an individual. uh, a lot of practitioners, in fact, everyone who's moved beyond practitioner is still a practitioner. So you guys that are coaches and consultants and master consultants for ChangeWorks, you do recognize you're still a practitioner. And so these things apply to you, but you have another set. And I don't know that I'll go through these in any great detail, but just to get you thinking, if you're a professional using the change grid with another client, see, as an individual, you're crafting your own activity lists, but or as a practitioner, the thought is your primary focus is crafting your own activity lists for your own personal consumption, if you will. But the moment you step into the professional side of things, now you're developing activity lists for other people or other groups of people, in which case we would say you could still do the personal insights and walk the path and do the research, but what about gathering input from the population itself? Do a little bit of a survey about what they consider to be the most important things they're doing, or what they might have to do moving forward to get to whatever the company goal or whatever happens to be. So you could certainly ask them, by the way, if you can come up with it on your own, or you can get it out of the mouths of other people, they tend to own the activity list. And again, without taking this into the professional levels of training, you know how important it is that the client owns the activity list, so that when you go through the debrief later on, you're not going to hear them say, yeah, but that's not quite exactly what we do or how we do it. It's like, I don't want you to tell me that we've got missing activities or improperly focused activities after the thing's already been administered. And so let's do as much as we possibly can to get that quality before anything is actually deployed. So gather the input from the population itself. Maybe you've been given kind of a scope of work of projects they're working on, tasks they have to work on. Maybe it came out of their job description. Maybe there's company published goals or organizational objectives, or they've got learning objectives. You get the idea. There may already be stuff that your client is using, and inside of the stuff they're currently using could be all kinds of activities you might want to put onto that master list. Going further, I already said job descriptions. We talked about this on many occasions with our professionals. We don't compete against any psychometric tool. We do our best to work in total harmony. And how we achieve that harmony is by focusing on whatever the advice is that the psychometric tool is providing, insights and advice. So it might say, if you want to become a more flexible person, work on this, 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 and this, so it'll give you actual to-do items in the good ones anyway. So it may very well be that in the narrative or the recommendations following that psychometric tool experience, there could be plenty of activities for you to do that. Remember, we say it as a joke, but it really is true. Psychometric tools tend to end with a question. And that question is always, now what? Well, we're now what? Now what are we going to do? How are we going to do it? So this list of activities is what we kind of pick up where they left off to do that. Yep. So you can map it to performance appraisal systems, project planning, procedure manuals. You can even just do it, building it as a simple to-do list at the organizational level. I very often ask the client what they think they should start, stop, or continue doing to craft the activity list. And then the other thing is that, well, I've said this earlier, we want to create as extensive a list as possible. It will get whittled down later.
Is
All right.
number 14 the 4 aspects of control?
Well, you could certainly do that. And again, everyone who's practitioner higher already knows about these 4 aspects of control. So this is about, what do you hope to gain? What do you hope to get rid of? What do you not want to gain? What do you not want to lose? And so you could certainly use that. Again, I even think of that as being a bit of a psychometric tool, although it's not very formal. It's still a very handy way to get people to think about their situation from multiple angles. Ultimately, the goal there. Yeah. All right. Now, so those are just some ideas about the better places to source activities. Let's say you've got these activities, and we'll go back to what we're talking about for the individuals. How do you go about taking those general activities and turning them into the best activities you can for plotting on a change grid. So here are some of our guidelines, rules, best practices, that we've come up with over the years to help you do this. The first one is the first one for a reason. The first word of every activity must be a verb. That is about as hard and fast as a rule is going to get. These are activities. These are human doings. So there's a verb that's involved. What is that verb? So first word of every activity must be a verb. As long as an activity begins with a verb, it can be plotted on the change grid. You can assess it, you can plot it. But not all verbs are created equally, which gets us to the second point. You want to focus on verbs that are associated with external behaviors, not internal responses or sensations. So, for example, if the activity that someone came up with was feeling more confident. Okay. Feeling is a verb, and I can certainly plot that. I could ask you guys, how do you rate your ability? How challenging is it for you to feel more confident? But ultimately, I think the work we're doing with someone, we get to say, well, feeling more anything doesn't necessarily change anything. So assume for a moment you were feeling more confident. How would you behave differently? What would you be doing or not doing, as the case may be? So, so you guys get where I'm going. Confidence, just to feel it for the heck of feeling it, doesn't really do much of anything, does it?
No.
No. And so we have to figure out how are we going to actually apply this and know that it's working. I think that's the other reason we want to focus on external behaviors, is that they're at least measurable in a yes or no way, maybe even measurable in some very fine-tuned kinds of ways. But I can see them, I can monitor them, manage them, I can measure them. That's really, when it comes to the real work of change, that's what I need to do. Now, that being said, would it be useful for someone to feel more confident? The answer is, well, of course. But feeling more confident is not the mission critical piece of the puzzle. It might be incidental, it might be optional, it might be accidental, but it's not mission critical. Yeah. Otherwise, I end up with a whole lot of highly confident people who still aren't really out there applying that confidence to anything, in which case, well, good was that. All right. So again, just to be clear, any verb can be explored. But if you want to do the best job, it would behoove you to focus on external behaviors rather than internal responses. So I've heard people go like, I'd like to think more objectively. Okay, I can put that on the change grid. But if you were thinking more objectively, how does that manifest itself behaviorally? What does that look like and sound like and feel like, and why would what would change as a result of that? So do I just really want to think more objectively, or am I trying to do something with that more objective thinking? You guys with me on this? Yep.
Yes.
Yep. And so the external verbs might be something like apply objective thinking to blah, blah, blah. Right. Recognize when, even recognize, it sounds like it's an internal process because it is an assessment that's happening in your head, but it's an assessment of something external. So am I recognizing when I'm displaying limited thinking? I need to recognize it before I can fix it. So there's a lot of gray area in this. There's a lot of verbs to pick and choose from. The advice here is simply focus on a verb that's about an external behavior, and you'll have a more effective change works experience as a result. Okay, thoughts, comments? Nate. Number 3, each activity should contain only one verb. Now, any of you who have ever done any kind of performance analysis, performance appraisal, any one of you who's trying to put together any sort of like a behavioral sequence that will, help us get from point A to point B and then from there to point C, et cetera. If you're procedural in your thinking, you know how critical it is that an activity would only have one verb. If I said to you that, the activity is, we want you to identify, no, research, identify, develop, approach, and secure new business opportunities. Is that one activity?
No.
No.
That's
And
a
so
lot.
if you said, well, my ability to do that is decent, but the challenge is extremely high, I don't know that that means anything, because I gave you 5 different activities, 5 different verbs. I don't know which one is problematic or which ones among them are problematic. And so if you look at the world of HR, and Tim's on the call, he could vouch for this for sure. I think a lot of you have got a background in HR on that, but HR professionals are notorious for verb packing. So they're looking at an activity, or they got a line item in a job description, and suddenly that one line item will have a half a dozen different verbs involved in it, which might be fine for a job description, but it certainly isn't fine for any kind of a developmental sort of plan.
I
Are we
think it's
on this?
cumbersome even in the job description. There, you read some of those, you're like, what the hell are they asking
Yeah,
here?
what am I doing? It seems like I'm doing everything. Yeah, particularly when item number 12 is other duties as assigned by management.
Right.
So I'm doing everything for everybody. All righty then. But you get it, the world of HR, because kind of like I don't think it's trained itself as much as it's been conditioned, because it's how it's been done by so many for so long, that
Hmm.
the job description tends to be filled with line items that are just packed with multiple activities. All right.
Hmm.
Tim, you want to step in and tell us if I'm right, wrong? Yeah.
I'm reaching for my tissues to wipe my eyes.
Yeah. Well, and here's the one that's really the best. But again, it's okay for a job description, because that's not a developmental plan. If I saw that as someone's action items following someone's performance appraisal, that you need to do A, B, C, D, and E, and then I'm going to train you to do all of those simultaneously. It's like, what? Wait. These are individual skills, individual things. So we got to look at that. They also will have a tendency, now I'm a little bit down on the list, I'm actually number 6 now. Not only will they pack the activity, or pack the line item with multiple activities, they're also pack it with multiple outcomes. So again, remember those 5 verbs I said up front of this thing. So we're going to do all those things, ending with secure new business to, and then I'm going to pack the back end, the objects, the desired outcomes, to increase customer retention, boost wallet share, and I want to say diminish the presence of competition in the community and in the industry as a whole. Okay. So that's a whole lot of things. And so it simply ends up becoming something that can be meaningless on a change grid. So remember, the change grid is activity specific, and that means only one verb and only one object. Now, this does apply to people's individual lives as well. So, for example, if I said that the verb is to lose 10, or the activity, lose 10 pounds, as opposed to lose weight. So if I
Right.
said, how do you rate your ability to lose weight? How challenging is it to lose weight? And then I come along and say, no, how's your ability to lose 10 pounds? How challenging is it to use 10 pounds? And I can even attach a performance standard to that activity. And it's still then only one. So I could say, what's your ability to lose 10 pounds by June 15th?
Right.
Or get the idea. So I've got these really three elements can fit into an activity. Usually there's only going to be two, but it's always going to be some sort of a verb that's going to lead me to some particular outcome. And then sometimes it's by a particular date or it's have some other kind of performance standard attached to the back end of it. So that it, exceeds, average time or whatever.
This is interesting to me because as I'm hearing this, I see the importance of it because if you start out from this perspective of it's the equivalent of like multitasking versus monotasking,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you're spreading energy too thin, and that's why you never get anything actually done.
Right.
When you're multitasking, it's the equivalent of like channel surfing in your brain. It's like
Mm-hmm.
off on, off on, off on. And so that energy is spread out, and you can't really take like a deep dive and have meaningful, purposeful interaction with the activity from that perspective. So that's what just came to mind to me as you just described that.
Yeah, and I think what's going on when you're doing activities that are packed with multiple verbs, multiple objects, multiple performance standards, whatever it is, the mind, the individual who's responding to this is flying through their perceptions, but the perception about their ability for each of those possibilities is different. And the perception of challenge is different, and size is different, and importance is different. And so you end up with just this gigantic pile of perceptions and little, if any, understanding about which perceptions belong to which scenario, you know? And so I just don't understand how anyone can do anything developmental looking at things that are general. The more specific we are, the better off we can be. Let's see, what else? Yeah. Number 4. Yep, go ahead. Anyway. Okay. So number 4, favor powerful verbs. Powerful verbs can sometimes feel a little bit daunting, risky. So let me give you a couple of examples of this. If I said that I want you to do is to improve your overall health. Okay, well, improve is good. But is there another verb along that same line? So it still has inherent in it this idea about improvement that would carry a higher level of tension or more focus or, something that's a bit more powerful. So optimize, that could very well be one. So I'm just not trying to improve it. I want to optimize it. What else might I want to do? What other verbs? Optimize, maximize.
Maximize, yeah.
Yeah, maximize. Yeah. So, and that's going to happen in a lot of different situations where I just, let's say I said something to about performance performance management, and I said that what I want someone to do is think about ... Think about, that's a verb, but is that what I really want you to do? Just think about, an outcome? Is that, do I want you to just think about it? Do I want you to evaluate it? Do I want you to assess certain things? Do I want you to, come up with a verb that's more powerful whenever you have one available to you? So maybe I just don't want to think about these. Maybe I want to choose one. Maybe I want to dedicate my energies to something. So there's a reason why English has all these verbs, and as you've already learned, all these adjectives. It's because we appreciate in our language and our communication varying degrees of intensity, varying degrees of maybe importance. So we need words to convey that. So please favor powerful verbs. Like we talked about turnover, and someone said, well, I'd like us to reduce our turnover rate of key employees. And it's like, reduce, that's what you want to do? You'll be happy if you reduce the turnover of your key employees? By show of hands, how many of you will be happy if you reduce the turnover? Is that the goal? All we want to do is reduce it? What do we really want to do? And what do you think they say?
Not have it.
We want to eliminate it.
Yeah.
We want to eliminate that.
Heard?
That's right. That's right. Now
No,
that
it can't be heard.
exactly.
Oh.
Yeah, go right ahead. Daniel, let me hear it again.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was having some technical difficulties here. I'm glad that I'm able to get through.
Okay, all right, no worries, no worries. But so my whole thing is that if I'm trying to set a standard, you know, this whole idea if you shoot for the stars, you'll end up at the moon, blah blah. It's the same thing. Our goal is to eliminate the turnover of key players, even though we understand intellectually, we understand that achieving zero turnover is unlikely and at a certain point undesirable. But if I work very hard at eliminating it, I may very well flesh out all those factors that contribute to retention that I may otherwise not have looked at if my whole goal was to simply reduce it. So, all right. So there are lots of reasons why we want to favor powerful verbs. Okay. Questions about that? All right. Number 5, avoid adverbs. So when someone says something like to how about this? To willingly complete my tasks every day. Okay, to willingly complete my tasks every day. All right, the real thing here that we're really looking for is you completing your tasks every day. If you fill out a change grid, I'll tell you whether you're willing or not. Right? Because the adverbs are definitely giving me, you know, how you respond to that. I'll tell you how you're actually feeling about it. But as far as willingness goes, but to willingly do that, is that what you really want them to do? Is to willingly complete their tasks? Because if that's the case, I will suggest to you that managing that willingness is a different activity than managing or getting them to willingly do what you've hired them to do or what you've chosen you're going to do, you know. So I would just say try to avoid the adverbs, focus on the verb itself. The adverbs, like people will throw in a quickly and easily. So to complete my sales goals easily. Okay, wait, how about you just tell me how you feel about completing your sales goals, and I'll tell you how easily you're finding it.
Right.
So, yeah, all right, anyway. Okay, other questions, comments about number 5? All right, then we already did talk about activity number 6, or the point number 6 here, which is every activity should have only one object. So one outcome you're looking for. If a particular behavior actually leads or could lead you to multiple desirable outcomes, then create multiple activities, all sharing the same verb, but different outcomes. You with me on this? And so, because sometimes you get a lot of bang for your buck, and there's a problem with one or two of them, but not so much with others. So we can focus on one activity, or for a given activity, we can focus on one verb, and there could be a lot of different outcomes. So each one's a separate line item. We could also have multiple verbs that all lead to the exact same outcome. And so I would still have a separate line item for each one of those verbs, but they're all for the same thing. So if we're talking about being healthy, which by the way, yeah, being healthy. So that's the outcome. I want to be healthy. So I don't want to say manage my diet, exercise, sleep, and mental health situation so that I can achieve optimal health. What? So let's just look at those one at a time and see how they contribute to optimal health. All right. All right. Number 7 and 8, we do tend to talk about concurrently this idea about mission critical versus mission incidental or mission optional. I'm going to show you a demonstration of this in action in just a few slides. But bottom line is that there are a whole lot of things that we need to do along the way to doing those things that absolutely must be done to get us to where we want to go. Sometimes those activities are preliminary, but they're incidental in and of themselves. They don't do much of anything to achieve the actual desired outcome. Nevertheless, I got to do them along the way. So they're kind of mission incidental. There's mission optional is kind of like, well, we could do this, but it might be good. It might produce some, something worth producing, but is it mission critical? Is it really focused on the key thing? Or is it like a lovely add-on, a lovely bonus kind of thing? Those would be more mission optional. There's also mission accidental things. Now that's different than incidental. Incidental things are things you actually probably do think about and they do have to be done. Accidental things are things that just kind of happened. And you didn't intentionally do it. There was no choice or decision really made around it. You just found yourself suddenly doing something, and there you are. So there can also be accidental, but those are quite rare. And bottom line, we don't want them on a change grid. So don't fill a change grid with incidental or optional or accidental sorts of things, just mission critical activities. And the biggest reason for that is practicality. We can only look at so many activities at a time before our brains go numb. And so why don't we focus on the ones that are going to be most instrumental in helping a person reach whatever their desired outcome happens to be. Now, as you're building that master activity list, like we said before, we're not trying to fine tune the activities or all of them. We're trying to build the biggest list. So back here to sourcing, that sourcing list may have all kinds of mission incidental, mission optional kinds of activities on it. Never judge an activity when you first capture it. Just write the thing down. Don't even bother trying to clean it up as you go. Just stream of consciousness. Just, I stumbled across something, I'm just going to cut and paste it. I'll figure out the grammar and the verb choice and all that later. So you're building this exhaustive list of activities. There's a reason for that we'll get to a little bit deeper down the list of things to do. So this is 8 things for crafting the perfect activity list for individual profiles, but we have a few more. We have a baker's dozen, in fact. It's very important that as you are phrasing an activity, that you are as specific as possible. Now, being very specific opens the door for you guys introducing more verbs, more outcomes, more of those measurable performance standards that might be included in one. That's not the goal. That's not what we're talking about. We're just saying be specific as possible in the phrasing of each activity. Again, I'll show you an example of that in just a second. So if I said something like, eat more vegetables. Okay, there you go. That's a perfectly plottable activity. Eat is the verb. More vegetables is not really the outcome. The outcome is kind of just implied there, but more vegetables. Well, do you really just want me to eat more vegetables? Because what if my favorite vegetable is potatoes and I can just eat more and more and more of them? I don't know that that was really where you were heading when you decided to write down eat more vegetables. So maybe it's about eating more diverse vegetables. Maybe there's a specific vegetable you want to be eating more of for whatever reason. Like I think, isn't kale still one of the superfoods? Far greater nutrient pack than other like iceberg lettuce. Iceberg lettuce is a source of water. I don't think that it has any real nutritional value. Well, I'm sure it does, but of many measurable significance, it's iceberg lettuce. It's a storage facility for water. So, all right. Okay. So be specific. Next one, stick to 1/10 throughout the entire activity list. Now, again, this isn't when you're first brainstorming or building that master list. That master list is in its raw, unedited. It's just the way that it is. Judge it, not just keep on fleshing it out. But when you go down that list now and say, which of these activities are truly mission critical? And you start to pull those out and you start to populate your activity list, you want to make sure you phrase them sticking to one particular tense. Now, generally in creating activity lists, the only 2 tenses we look at are two verb forms is what I'm going to call them, is that we look at something that is stated as though it is an event or stated as though it is a process. So if I said eat more vegetables, that's different than eating more vegetables. So am I going to look at the activity as though it's an event? Did it happen? Or is it a one-time kind of a thing? Or what am I really trying to do is build a list of behavioral processes. In fact, I don't know that a behavior, if I really look at the definition for what that word is or its intention, was it describing events and ongoing behaviors, or is a behavior something that one is expected to do, anticipated to do more frequently, consistently, whatever? I don't know. I haven't looked up the word, but I think there's a big difference between viewing an activity as an event versus as a process.
Absolutely.
So yeah, save more money. Okay, that sounds like a goal. And when I'm done, I can check it off. I saved more money. But if I change that to saving more money, that means I'm never going to be done with it, right? I'm always going to be saving, or I'm always thinking about saving. And so I have a tendency to phrase all of my verbs in that I think it's the gerund form when it ends with an ing. So I want the ing. So that's what I wanted. So yeah, yep.
This is a skill set for sure. I didn't realize
Well,
like all of
well,
this is in the list because it really shapes context. Because like when you talk about behavior, right, it comes from two words and it's dealing with not just the process of, but also the conduct. So like it, how you met
how you
that
do about it.
moment,
Right,
right? Because
right,
that's
right,
where the
right.
consistency and things like that matter. So like you tell someone to behave a certain way. You don't want them to behave a certain way just once. You're hoping that that become part of, their character, becomes part of their practice.
Yes.
And
In which case you want to be inging all over the place.
right.
Ing. These are things we want you to do, continue to do, get good at doing. We want it to become part of your habit, your routine, whatever. That's the point there. And now, why do you want to stick with just one? I think it's because when you are looking at an activity list as though it's a list of ongoing sustained behaviors that we're looking for, that's kind of a different assessment vantage point, if you will, from me saying, here's a list of laundry items, just click them off, check them off. Should work your way down. Because yeah, I could do it once. Yeah, do it once, do it once. Oh, doing it in a sustained way, just changing that little ending in the verb can make all the difference. So, and I don't want to confuse somebody. That's my big deal. If I want to do one that's all about the events, because sometimes that's it. For example, if you guys are using the change grid as a to-do list, well, a to-do list is a list of things that you need to get done and check off. I wouldn't bother inging in that particular application. It's just like do the laundry, pack for the trip, empty the trunk, whatever. These are little line items. So fine, that's a fine, but don't blend them together because it's two different ways of looking at an activity. So choose one for the whole activity list, and you got at least two different forms you can choose from for easy integration here. Okay, a couple more things to go over here. Don't be stingy with the number of activities on the list. I talked about that earlier. Just make that robust list. The reason for it is because your activity lists may very well represent change grids you will do early on for marketing purposes, in which case you only want 5. Maybe it's for screening purposes, in which case you might want 10 activities. So you want an expanded list. Maybe now that you have a client, you say to them, we'd like to put you through the full profile. That's 25 mission critical activities. I wouldn't give that to somebody first time off. It's going to take them a half hour to fill it out. But if they're a client and they're they're with you when it comes to working on whatever area they want to work on, you want to say to them, I can give you a very robust activity list for you to flesh out on, and that'll help us to best focus what we're doing and how we're going about doing it. And I might even say to someone that depending on which activity in the short list shows itself to be problematic, we have 10 sub activities for each one of those that we might want to do the next deeper dive into. All of those activities can still be on the master list. How you go about pursuing that list, extracting activities from that list for whatever purposes you have in mind, that's only limited to your professional creativity. But it's really handy to have already done the work of brainstorming and compiling that list. I did something fun couple of days ago. I said to ChatGPT that I wanted to plan a trip for the autumn. We want to practice our French, so we thought we'll go to French-speaking Canada, go up there during the fall or whatever. Well, we found out that if you want to go to New England in the fall, you'd best be booking your hotels now. It might even be too late to be able to get, where you might want to stay or to get on one of these cruises or whatever. So I said, please make a list of 100 activities I have to do or I would benefit from doing in that plan. It rattled off 100 like it was nothing. And so I said, give me 100 more. And it gave me 100 more like it was nothing. And then I said, now put these in a logical order for completion. And it did that. And so what I'm saying to you is that creating robust activity lists has always been vitally important in the long-term work that we do, but it's getting easier and easier for us to do it. I did give ChatGPT the rules for crafting activities. Not all these, but the ones that really made a difference in the way they were phrased. And I can tell you that it doesn't understand what I mean by a powerful verb. It really struggled to do the kinds of things I'm telling you guys to do, but at least it created the raw list in a handy kind of a way. All right.
So how did you create a multi-dimensional list like you did for the Oracle itself with, I think it was titled Preparedness and Engagement? Like that would be two separate lists, but did you just see like the final list as like an intersection?
Yeah, well, because I wanted to see some of the activities were about how ready you are to do something. It's readiness and engagement. And I also wanted to explore specific activities where engagement would be underway. So for example, one of the activities was about using the online change work system.
Right.
Well, yeah, that's a different one than if I don't know, remember the list was off the top of my head, but there you go. But that was all top of mind. I didn't ask for anyone help because we talk about this stuff all the time. And basically, if you think about it, what I was doing is looking at the curriculum that we'd gone through for the Oracle of the Self. And I said, well, if I want to check in with them, how are they doing on the things that I think were most important for them to know at this point in time? And so that was all out of my head.
Yeah. Got it.
Okay. So number 12, decide if order matters. Now, you're not going to do that when you're building the initial list. Again, that's stream of consciousness stuff. But when you actually start to extract and put your activities on the system, you want to ask yourself, would it be useful for my respondent if these were in some sort of a natural sequential order? Or is there benefit to jumping all over the place? So does order matter? Would it be useful? Would it be, I don't know. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But I would tell you that there's no hard and fast rule about the order in which to put your activities on the change grid. You can do anything you want to do, and I can build a case for a great variety of different strategies in the order in which they're listed. Yep. And I already talked about build your activity lists in Word. Now, there are some other guidelines, but these are more for group profiles. And this is something that we would have talked about in the deeper trainings you guys have gone through. And I'll just touch lightly on some of these. Whenever possible, use the client's own words because we want them to own their list. In fact, have them craft their own list, and then you can refine what they came up with on their own. Always review it with your client before you deploy it. That description feature that's on the system can be very handy when you're particularly working with group profiles, so that you can at least try to get everybody to interpret a specific activity the same way. On an individual profile, it is unnecessary to use the description feature. Don't spend your time doing it. Watching out for respondent fatigue. We talked briefly about that. If I'm crafting an activity list for a group sort of thing, it'd be handy for me to know what I'm hunting for before I start. What am I trying to prove? What am I trying to explore? What's this activity list trying to do? I can certainly have the activity list reviewed by multiple contributors, people who might be asked to fill the change grid out. Maybe I want to ask them to look at it in advance just to make sure that they understand what I'm asking for, or maybe they've got some advice for me on how to better state it. I can also run it by my peers. We already talked about saving any rejected activities for other types of profiles. And oh, this is the last one. If you're putting together an activity list for marketing purposes, make sure that the verbs you've chosen are likely to plot up grid. Obviously, people are more likely to engage your services as a professional if you're helping them to somehow or another solve a problem, seize an opportunity. These are things that have higher levels of inherent tension. So choose your verbs or choose your activities accordingly. Yep. Okay, so just wanted to throw those in there. Obviously, if you've gone through the more detailed training, you already know what that's all about. I did just want to show you one little last example about how the path of self-discovery is going to give rise to the activities on the list. Because if you are functioning in a professional capacity, I would hope you are starting off by walking the path with that client. And if you're using this as an individual, as an individual practitioner, then walking the path is something that you should be doing very comfortably, fluently every day. Always thinking about, where am I at? Where am I trying to go? What's in my way? This should be a natural structure that you're following in your thought processes. So, but we look at activities. When I look at the current situation, there are all kinds of activities that are being revealed. So specific tasks, responsibilities, relationships with people. When I look at the desired situation, there's even more. All the goals, the objectives, and by the way, the goals could be both things I want to add or don't want to add, etc. So what do I want? What does it look like, etc. Obstacles are going to identify the problems, risks, deficiencies, etc. And when I get to the yellow step, the solutions, that's where the strategies, the assignments, the routines, the tools, the whatever I'm going to need are going to come from. And all of those could end up becoming activities that can be plotted on the change grid with benefit. I mean, you can plot any of them on the change grid, but they would make a difference if you plotted them there. And this last little thing about specificity, I just wanted to show you this, that one of the things that we could say at the current situation, I say, what do you have to do? What's on your to-do list? What's your job? And they say, well, I have to return phone messages. Okay. Well, is there any kind of performance standards you've got around those phone messages? Yes, we have to return all messages from yesterday afternoon before noon today. Okay, great. Is there anything even more specific? Yes, I have to return the owner's phone messages within 20 minutes. So nowadays it's probably text messages, but you get the idea. The more specific we get, the better we are able to focus on whatever the challenge is. They might say, well, when it comes to returning phone messages, that's easy. They're down in apathy. Returning phone messages before noon, now they might be up in power. Return the owner's messages within 20 minutes, that could put them all the way up in stress. So the more specific we are, the more insights we're going to gain. Similarly, let's say that you've got a goal, and the goal is to sell more. Well, sell more what? Sell more of the PX90. Even more specific, sell 100 more units of the PX90 to governmental organizations by December. So how many of you recognize that's a very different activity than selling more? Yeah. All right, going on to the obstacles, sticking with my thing. Well, what's in your way of selling more? And they go, we have to eliminate budget restrictions. I said, really? You have to eliminate budget restrictions? Somewhere or another, you as a sales representative have to get your client to eliminate budget restrictions. And I'm trying to make it sound ridiculous because they go like, no, I just need them to eliminate the budget restrictions on sales promotions for the PX90. Okay, really? You got to get them to eliminate budget restrictions. They go like, no, honestly, I just need to get approval for a special PX90 promotional sales event that I want to do. Okay, then this, sometimes by being more specific, it actually becomes more doable. The thought that anyone's from the outside is going to walk into a corporation, get them to eliminate budget restrictions, this isn't going to happen. But maybe, just maybe, I'm talking to a decision maker who can grant approval or secure approval for that promotional sales event. And then the last one I'll give you is about the yellow. Well, what do I need to do to get that exception made? They go, I need to meet with the vice president of sales. And I say, really? That's all you have to do? Physically meet with them. So you're walking down the hall past them, and there you are. You've just kind of met them. It's done. They go, well, no, I have to meet with them regarding the promotional sales event. That's all you got to do. Just as long as you meet with them about that event, you'll get your outcome. They go like, no, I have to prove to the vice president of sales that the PX90 promotional sales event is profitable. That's a very different activity. And it's actually getting to the mission critical part. Meeting with them is incidental. Meeting with them about a particular subject still feels incidental to me. I got to get to what's the real mission critical goal here, and that's to make sure that the event is profitable. So that's what I wanted to cover on today's call. Hopefully, while it was a bit of a whirlwind, you guys got a good refresher and hopefully some new ideas about how to craft activity lists that are going to serve you as an individual even better. So comments, thoughts, anyone wants to share, questions before we're done?
I really like this last part because I like this idea of teasing out. I wouldn't say struggle per se, but the understanding, like for my own self, a criterion, if you will, for the mission critical
Yes,
is,
yeah.
I think, key.
It is key. And let's put it back into that individual practitioner kind of application. It's the same thing when you're just trying to talk to a friend, a family member, a vendor, whatever, about doing something. And so here we are talking to saying like, well, what do I need to do today? And I say, well, I need to go to the gym. Okay, is that what I need to do? Is I just need to physically go to the gym? No, I need to go to the gym and exercise. Okay, any old exercise will do. Well, no, to stay on my program, today is a pull day. And so I need to do my lats and I need to do my biceps and back. The more specific we can learn to get with ourselves, the more clarity we'll have around what is we need to do. And again, it doesn't have to involve a change grid. How many of you, now this is talking to you more on the professional side of things, has learned that asking an executive what they want their people to do is extremely difficult to get an answer out of? They don't think that they don't think in that detail. They tend to be big picture thinkers, so they can say, in general, we just want them to sell more. Okay, but sell more what, to who, by when?
Right. We just want more performance. Okay, well, what does that look like?
Yeah. And even asking people for this depth, for this clarification, for this whatever, this is an inherently valuable experience altogether. Forget the grid even gets involved. We haven't even talked about the grid. We're just talking about activities. No one's filled anything out. But just the act of crafting the activity list and then phrasing the activities in the more powerful kind of way. This is a wonderful process for an individual to learn, just to help them make higher quality decisions in their own life and help those people closest to them perhaps make better quality decisions in theirs as well. So, yeah. Okay. Other questions, comments?
I'm good.
Yep.
Have you heard? There are. Okay. Hi, guys. I've been away for a while, and I just wanted to let you know I put something into the chat. It's got my telephone number. I would appreciate anyone texting me who would like to look at the system that I'm working with, which would objectify some of the things that were so subjective earlier in the conversation. I didn't want to break in and say that.
That's excellent.
Cool.
All right, thank you for that.
So please take a look and text me if you'd like to help me out.
All right.
Absolutely, will do.
Hey, T, is there a reason you left out the fifth step? The red, the passion.
Yeah, generally speaking, the red step, we're talking about people's hunches, feelings, predictions, instincts, intuitions. These do tend to, number one, all be internal processes, not external behaviors. So for that reason alone, we would say that we're unlikely to get any activities out of there that would ultimately end up on an activity list. Yeah, and so that's the thing. It's translating those feelings into behavior. However, when we are at that red step, and I ask people, how do you feel about this? What's your instinct? What's your gut telling you? They may very well, let's say that they're indicating some hesitation or whatever. I might say to them, what's the hesitation all about? And they may very well come up with a obstacle we hadn't talked about before, or they might be confused about one of the solution steps and how to do it. So usually the red step isn't, or that feeling step isn't going to give me more activities as much as it's going to give me greater clarity over the activities, that the more logical steps of the process we're exploring, like green, black, and red are tend to be.
You know, the other thing is that's the fifth step. And I've always wondered, so many coaches start out with, what's your passion? You know, is it a boutique, whatever?
Yeah.
Why is that the fifth step?
Right.
When
Here's the best way to answer that. The truth is that when we talk about walking the path, we are talking about doing something in a very calculated, methodical way that otherwise is happening spontaneously and organically at all times. So the truth is that before I sit down and ask anyone about their current situation, their mind could have most recently been in red or the black, or, obstacles, desired outcomes, whatever it is. So something definitely preceded it, but really a whole chain of random somethings came before it. So let me give you my best way of kind of explaining this. You guys all know the number pi. And so you know that pi is an infinite number. It will never repeat in its pattern, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, we all know that. Now, here's my big aha. Do you realize that that means that if you were to print out all of the digits of pi all the way to infinity, that somewhere in that long stream of numbers would be each and every phone number you've ever had, the address of every place you've ever lived, every one of our social security numbers, every one of our credit card numbers, because those are all, random if we think about that in general terms. But in a world of infinite randomness, everything will happen sooner or later. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
when I think of someone using their mind and making decisions and following this path, I realize that their brain has been doing what pi does. It's been thinking about anything and everything randomly, and abandoning it and throwing in this, and fantasies and hardcore realities and blah blah blah. That's all been happening. I'm saying now just stop for a moment and let's do something very deliberate, very calculated, very controlled on a specific subject, so that we can harness the power of the brain, harness the power of pi, if you will, to really give us. Did you guys ever think about that, though? That pi contains every number, every number combination of every possible length. It's there sooner or later. Yeah. Yep. So
and that's why spiritually they always said there is nothing new under the face of the sun, right? So it's just our new discovery per se. We become aware of it.
Yep. There you go.
Interesting.
All righty. So with that, we'll be, anyone else, other comments? Kathy, Daniel?
I just wanted to say, with that conversation, you all must text me.
All right, there you go. Yep. All right. So with that, thank you, everybody. We'll talk again very soon. Bye for now.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.